Hi, this is Danny Doyle, and I am here with my tiering of the emblem maps for the DLC emblems. Initially, there was going to be a different video coming out today, but due to a family emergency, I've been watching my nephew every day this week, and he is exhausting because he's less than a year old, and babies are a handful. So instead, you get this. You get me just throwing together a tier list. Sorry if it is a little bit rambly and freeform, but that's just how we roll today. So, criteria for this is super subjective because it's how much I enjoyed or disliked the map. I am taking as well, so like obviously the main thing is the map fun to play? I'm not factoring in the emblem's strength, like if the reward is worth it, because I don't think that, I'm just not factoring it in. But the main thing is the map fun to play? And then maps get bonus points if there are fun references, or they did interesting things with the map in terms of like referencing the game that the particular emblem is from, if the map that was chosen feels especially fitting for that particular emblem, and that sort of thing. So, like all tier lists, everyone's gonna have a different opinion of where things should go, but this one in particular is like super subjective because rather than being viability strength thing, it is just about maps and enjoyment, and that's a lot more subjective. I think that there are, obviously game design is not 100% subjective, but it's very much, what's to your taste, and maybe I really enjoyed a map or really hated a map and you didn't, so, yeah, just, bear in mind, this is not the objective ranking, yeah. Let's start out with Tiki, who was the only map in Wave 1 of the DLC, and I would say for good reason. In my opinion, Tiki's Paralogue is an S-tier Paralogue. Tiki's Paralogue is by far, just to spoil it, the best of the Paralogues. It got me actually really excited for the future Paralogues, and I think that part of the reason that they opened with Tiki's Paralogue is they knew that Tiki's Paralogue was probably the best designed of them, or at least among the best designed. I think that they picked a great map for her. For those who don't know, it's the FE3 map with where she's asleep. It's where you recruit her in the FE3. She's actually in the chamber where she is in FE3 as well. The way that they have it laid out so that you have to go to all the different chambers is also pretty interesting because, like, that's a reflection of how the map works as well, that you go to the central chamber and then it opens the seize point and it also opens where Tiki is, and if you want to recruit her, you have to send Marth over to where Tiki is and then send Marth over to where the seize point is. The music was great, FE3 music is... The music on all of these maps is great. I'm probably going to say the music is great for all of them. But the music was great. I love the gimmick of the ice tiles that increase your movement. Later that got put into Camilla Emblem, but at the time, this was the only time that they had that, and I think it's a really cool, like, map gimmick. And the ice wyverns were, while they can be a little bit frustrating on Lunatic, I do like that I thought it was very interesting that they will inflict the freeze status even if you kill them. And so you have to be really careful and tactical with how you take them on, because, like, say, you've got an archer with canter or even without canter to take them on, they're just frozen for another turn. If you're enemy facing them, you're just frozen on player phase. It becomes very, very interesting to take them on. I thought they were a very cool enemy type, and obviously they get brought back as well, but this is your first exposure to them. It is very difficult on higher difficulties, on Lunatic in particular, but I don't think it rises to the level of, like, frustration. I think it's a fun challenge. And I think it's peak map. Also, as much as I dislike the silver card being behind a literal paywall, I do think it is an extremely cute reference that the silver card is in the spot where the secret shop is in FE3 and FE12. And I also appreciate that they add the sparkles so that you actually know to go there for it. And if you miss it in your first play, you can pick it up on skirmishes, which is nice for them to do that. It's not like the goddess icon in Sigurd's map, where there's just literally no indication, which is like a cute reference in and of itself, that, you know, there's hidden items in FE4, but I found that to be a little bit frustrating. At least it's only goddess icon. But for something as powerful as the silver card, I'm glad they add those sparkles, and it is still a cute reference. And while you don't need warp to get there, you basically do, because you're in range of the ice dragons and they'll freeze you. But they give you a warp staff, which is nice. I'm not going to be taking points away from the fact that they give you warp, rescue, and rewarp, even though I feel like that is a negative thing from the DLC, that like they let you pay real world money for good options. I'm not penalizing the map for that, just like I'm not penalizing it for the silver card. If I did penalize it for that, it'd probably go down to A, but as it stands, I think it is an S tier map. I love the reference, I love everything about it. I think it's a very well designed map, fun to play on hard, and even more fun on maddening. Except Soren's map. So Soren's map, I feel like the reference that they chose was a little bit weird. I get that, like, going through the volcano was Soren's idea, and it was supposed to be like, you know, they'll never follow us in here because we'll, you know, it's too dangerous. But if anything, it's kind of a failure of his, because they did follow them in. And while, you know, you're obviously in the plot able to kill everyone who goes in the volcano after you, it doesn't really show off Soren's tactical genius. I would have thought that either the tent burning map from Radiant Dawn would have been a good one. The map where you're racing up to stop the duel between Skrimir and Zelgius would have been a good one, because that sort of like shows that Soren was right to be cautious. Yeah, I don't really think the volcano map is a huge plot moment for Soren, so that kind of felt like a miss. The smoke is a nice anti-turtling incentive, but it is on higher difficulties, and especially in higher difficulties later in the map, or later in the campaign when like enemies have scaled up, kind of frustrating. I also think Soren having bolting makes him an obnoxious boss to deal with. I do like that you are encouraged to sort of like split up if you want to get the treasures, and the treasures are actually like worth getting, so it does get you to like decide, you know, you gotta split up your army. I like that they've got the flyers that are sort of coming at you from areas that you can't reach. I don't really think there's any cool references beyond just like the meteors. I'm kind of over maps that have meteors and fire tiles and stuff like that. I feel like it's a little bit but otherwise I've listed a couple of negative things, but I feel like it's a pretty inoffensive map, especially when compared to some of the other ones. So B tier, maybe C tier. I'm gonna say B tier simply because there's some real stinkers in here, and I don't want to. Maybe I'll move him down to C tier, depending. Yeah, I'll put him in C tier. I think that's probably where he belongs. B. We'll go B. Final answer B. There's some real stinkers, and like, in comparison to them, Soren is very inoffensive. Hector. I'm gonna skip Camilla for now. Hector. Full disclosure, FE7 is one of my least favorite games in the franchise. So I'm lacking the nostalgia for Hector, but I do think that they picked one of the best maps they could have picked for it. The Berserker. Unfortunately, they're limited by, like, you know, the Berserker's a small map, so they were limited in that aspect. I do appreciate that they didn't just force you to have 2 units, although that would have been very funny. It would have been endlessly frustrating. I don't like that for seemingly no reason they added a flyers-only ledge if you go the upper route, because normally how I play the Berserker when I'm playing it is I go up and then I go left. But here, they want you to go left and then up, because they added a flyers-only ledge, which I guess was to stop you from being able to, like, pincer attack Hector, but, like, pincer, not the skill, the halberdier skill, but, like, you could send half your squad one way and half the other, and sort of, like, come at him from both sides, but I don't know, it feels entirely unnecessary, and it also felt poorly communicated. I know that I am not the only person who sent a bunch of non-flyers up and then realized we couldn't go over, because it looks like you can pass without closer examination. I like the repurposing of the poison mechanic, because I think poison is more impactful and engaged than it is in FE7. And I like overall, this is a fun map to play. I do think the Wolf Knight reinforcements are a little bit frustrating, although if you play it early, they're Cavaliers and they're easier to deal with. I'm gonna put him in A tier. I think the Hector map is, like... See, Hector doesn't feel like an A tier map. Maybe that's the argument for moving Soren to C. Is like, I can't justify putting Hector in A, but also Hector is a tier above Soren, because Hector doesn't really have frustrations to it. Other than, like, I'm not going to penalize it too much for the ledge decision, because, like, it's frustrating, but once you know it's there, it's just, like, a little bit... In future playthroughs, you won't make that mistake. Like, you'll just send flyers up that way. And the poison veins are something you actually have to keep track of. And I appreciate that they don't do the FE7 thing of launching poison veins when no one's in it. Or maybe that's an FE6 thing. I think it's both of them. But, like, they don't waste your time with animations you don't need. So I think that's fun. And I enjoy tricking enemies into getting into the poison tiles as well. Camilla's a big stinker. I have only played Camilla's map under a reverse recruitment setting. I skipped it in my... I've done 2 runs outside of reverse recruitment, 2 vanilla runs where I've played the DLC, and I skipped it in both of them because it seemed frustrating and horseshit. And even in reverse recruitment, where I like had the benefit of warping someone up there and also warp Ragnaroking in order to double team the boss, it was frustrating because just like getting hit by a bunch of flyers who can pass over terrain that you can't, because you probably, if you're playing early, you probably don't have a bunch of flyers, and if you're playing late, they've power crept the enemies to the point where sending your flyers ahead is really annoying. So having to either wait out all those reinforcements while Camilla activates Dragon Veins and crushes the blockades is tedious. Or you can run in a zigzag Z shape, going zip, zap, back and forth throughout the map, all the while being peppered by flyers who are, if not able to, like, completely stay out of your range, probably able to get the first hit on, because it's unlikely... I mean, they have more move than you, because they can move over the areas she's knocked down. I guess not more move, but, like, they're more mobile than you, even if you have, even if you have Cavaliers. It feels like it is a map that you want to warp skip, and I feel like the only enjoyable way is to warp skip it. There's not really rewards other than EXP for not warp skipping it, and I feel like if a map wants you to warp skip it, that tends to be, it's not always, but that tends to be an indicator that it's a poorly designed map. And I feel like in this case it is a poorly designed map. As far as references, like, they have Veruca and they have, or not Veruca, yeah, they have Veruca and Selena, which is cool. And they have, like, it's the Camilla map and she's activating Dragon Veins like she does in the Camilla map. I think it was a good map for them to choose. If they were going to choose any, I would have rather Chapter 10, but also Engage's track record with Defend maps is a little bit not great. So picking the Sewers map, like, that's the Sewers map is one of the hardest maps in Birthright, and I know Birthright easy game, but, like, it is iconic. If you were gonna pick a map for Camilla, I feel like either Chapter 10 or the Sewers map are the 2 good ones. So they picked a good map for her. They just made an absolute mess of it. I want to say this is a. I want to say this is D tier. This is a very bad map. You can warp skip it, and warp skipping it, I feel like, is the advised way to play. Just, like, do a Micaiah warp using the warp staff that you get from the Tiki map. I guess the Tiki map gets even more credit for, like, making you not have to deal with the bullshit that is the Camilla map, but goddamn. Alright. I put both Chrom and Robin on here because The Chrom map is so bad, I can't stand to put it in F tier only once. This fucking piece of shit goes in F tier twice. That's how much I hate this map. It is absolute horseshit. Like, this map is... Oh my god. So, I'll start with the positives, because there's one. There's one positive. They picked a good map. A good map for Chrom and Robin. Like, it is one of the high points of the story, and it's a high point that focuses on Chrom and Robin, like, together, their relationship. And the ring, or the bracelet, is supposed to be about their relationship with each other, and it's like the height of, you know, oh no, Robin betrayed Chrom, but it turns out their friendship was strong enough that he was able to resist mind control. And, like, you know, the power of friendship stuff is a little bit, I'm not a huge fan of it, but it is a core theme of Awakening, and that is the climax of, like, this map is the climax of the core theme that is Robin and Chrom's relationship, and their sort of, like, bonds stronger than fate. So I think they picked the perfect map for a Chrom and Robin emblem. I think any other map would have just failed to... Like, if it was just Chrom, you could argue, you know, Don't Say Her Name is a good one for just Chrom. A lot of maps would have been good for just Chrom. And for just Robin, like the ship map, or really only the ship map is the only good one I can think. I guess maybe Grima Final, or like Awakening, the map named Awakening. But like for the two of them together, absolutely perfect. I mean, they're isolated behind the barrier in that map. It's perfect. It's the correct map to choose. And initially, the way that it presents itself, I was like, okay, you know, there's the barrier, you gotta take it down, I like that. But then we get into the negatives. So first off, the map lies to you. I don't like it when maps lie to you. It tells you, you know, you're supposed to break the crystals, and then it turns out you have to break them all at the same time. They have really fucking weird phrasing, too, to like... I feel like they wanted to make it sound natural while also tutorializing, and they did neither. But you gotta break all the crystals at the same time. But then, as you start moving units to break the crystals at the same time, Robin goes like, it's time for our plan! And suddenly the whole map gets filled with water tiles. Which hamper all of your non-flying units' movement. If you're like me, and you don't have that many flying units on your team at the time, I think the only flying unit I had was Hortensia. And the Camilla emblem. You're just shit out of luck. Because now your units can't move. And, oh, what's that? A bunch of flying reinforcements spawn to take care of the people you left behind to deal with the crystals? And, like, hello, it's the most Awakening-ass map design. And, like, I am not the biggest hater of Awakening's ambush spawns. I think that they are horseshit for blind playthroughs and Ironmans, but I do think that if they were better communicated as like a, hey, you have 5 turns to do this before the ambush reinforcements show up. Kind of like in Thracia, where there's ambush spawns that you can technically outlast in the prison chapter, but it tells you like, hey, you're gonna game over if you spend too long here. And then instead of just straight game overing you, they give a bunch of ambush spawns who are gonna kill you. I feel like if Awakening took that approach, they would be a lot less offensive, but as it is, Awakening just, like, surprises you with ambush spawns, and they kill you, and you're supposed to just deal with it. I'm getting very off topic here because I'm exhausted, but basically it's the most Awakening-ass map design in the worst possible way. Of just like, hey, let's put you in a situation where these ambush spawns are they're not ambush spawns, but they might as fucking well be, because they're flyers, and if you've left any non-flyers down there, you're not gonna get out of range in time for the flyers. It's just frustrating. And even ignoring the ambush spawns, like let's say the units you left down there are strong enough to hold out on their own. I don't think I used that many rewinds, so it wasn't like a huge deal. But then you're just moving through what is essentially a surprise desert map. Like a bunch of terrain that slows your units down just everywhere, but you didn't expect it. So maybe you deployed units, like at least when there's a desert map, you know to deploy flyers and units who can move through terrain easily. But here the map presents itself as not being that, and then surprises you halfway through with terrain. So it's bullshit blind. When you're not playing blind, you can better prepare for it by being like, well, I better have flyers. But I don't think that's a defense. Like, I think it's still bad. It's so frustrating because Engage fixed desert maps. Like, Engage had a really good desert map, probably the best desert map in the series. And then the DLC goes, hold my beer, let's make a really fucking shit desert map. Like, one of the worst in the series. Divide your army up to get 3 points to break the barrier. And then even then, the water tiles didn't, because I was like, maybe the water tiles would disappear. I was streaming, right? And I was like, maybe the water tiles would disappear, and chat's like, no, they're there forever. And I'm just like, that's horseshit. Shoutouts to the Camilla emblem having the ability to get rid of the water tiles, but that does not save this map from being just like one of the most poorly and honestly cruelly designed Fire Emblem maps in a long time. Oh, and there's meteor mages as well. And all of this from my only experience with this map is on hard mode. I cannot imagine how horseshit it is on maddening mode. Like, it is so frustrating. And last but not least, because the least is the Chrom map, so last but definitely not least, is Veronica. I, in my initial playthrough, was very negative on the Veronica map. It opens with something that I absolutely hate, which is turn 0 reinforcements. By turn 0 reinforcements, I mean, while you're doing your battle preparations, there are units that will show up before player phase of turn 1 that you cannot see during battle preps. And I think that is one of the most obnoxious things that has become increasingly common in Fire Emblem. And I don't understand why IS keeps doing it. I first noticed it in Fire Emblem Three Houses. They have it a lot. The Ingrid Paralog is an example where, like, the map is empty, but then a bunch of people the map is nearly empty, but then a bunch of people show up after you do preps, so you have to, like, redo preps if you didn't prepare for them correctly, and while you're doing preps, you can't check ranges. Like, oftentimes for me, especially if I'm playing a map that I've played before, part of what I do in preps is, like, I arrange people in deployment slots to look at, like, I'll move this person here, turn 1 to kill this enemy, and if you can't see where the enemies are that you want them to kill, then, like, you're SOL. And the Veronica map repeats this pattern. I know it happens in Fates a couple of times as well, mostly Birthright. Yeah, I think it's mostly Birthright and Rev. Conquest doesn't really have any moments like that, but it's frustrating to me when enemies spawn in on the start of turn 0. Turn 0 reinforcements just feels like a time tax to me. So they opened with that, and that put me in a sour mood, especially after I did the Chrom and Robin map. And then I got some bad luck, and I made some bad plays as a result of being salty, so I had a very rough time with the Veronica map. And I think that my initial impression of Veronica map was much more negative than it should have been. I actually like the gimmick of splitting your army up. I think that split army maps can be done well. They can be done shit, but they can be done well, and I think this was an example of one done fairly well. I'm not a huge fan of the limited deployment slots, although if you keep in mind that this is first opened after Chapter 7, and the majority of people are probably going to play it, or after Chapter 6, actually. So the majority of people are probably going to play it early on with, like, just the Firene squad. Maybe some Brodians, if you, like... I think there's an argument to do Chapter 7 in order to get Alcrest, so you have another sniper for the Tiki map. So maybe some Brodians, but most people will probably be just doing it with the Firene squad. 8 slots is probably fine for that. I like the idea of having to split your army, both in terms of, like, because they start on different islands, but also because even if you have flyers or warp staffs, there's 2 separate objectives, like 2 separate seize points, kind of like one of the only good FE7 maps, which is the Crazed Beast, where you have to seize 3 points. I actually really like that as an objective. I thought it was really cool and unique, and this felt like a return of that. Also, I do like that the reinforcements that show up are her gimmick of, like, summoning people. I thought that was a really cool way of implementing the emblem ability, is just be like, yeah, you know, we get reinforcements. I think it's dumb that they did it on turn 0, but the zone-based ones, I was negative on them when I was first playing through it because I got soured by turn 0 bullshit. But the zone-based ones and the ones that show up once you engage her in battle, like the ones from the rear to sort of, like, hurry you on to have to, like, kill her fast or deal with the rear reinforcements, I thought those were cool, and I thought it was a really cool implementation of the fact that, you know, she's a summoner. Or maybe she's not. I actually don't know Hero's story. I've never touched Heroes because I think gacha is despicable. But people in chat were saying, like, she doesn't actually have the power to summon, or maybe this version of Veronica doesn't, because she's got, like, one version's design, but the other version's personality. And she said in the dialogue that the summoner, who I assume is the my unit for Fates, or not Fates, Fae, is the one who summons, and she's only able to summon as an emblem. But either way, it's a reference to summoning in Fae. And as much as I don't like Fae and I don't like the gacha summoning, I do think it was a very cool reference, and I'm gonna give bonus points for that. I feel like they deserve it. I think it was well done. And also, the fact that it's separated into 3 islands, I felt like was a really creative way to deal with the fact that Heroes maps are small because they gotta fit in a mobile screen. You don't scroll through them. They're just one screen. They're small maps. And I feel like each island sort of representing its own mobile screen. I don't know if those are actual maps from Fae, or if it was just, like, meant to represent that you're playing through 3 small maps. But it really felt like I was launching campaigns with 3 separate maps. And actually, come to think of it, because I am aware of some stuff about Heroes, even though I haven't played it. Come to think of it, the fact that it was 8 deployment slots, and there's 4 on each side, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but aren't there only 4 units per army in Fae, at least for player armies? So that in itself is also a cool reference. Yeah, this map slaps. This map is actually good. I'm gonna put this one in B tier with Hector. I've talked myself up on it. The turn 0 stuff is bullshit, but I don't think that's enough to take away. I think it's actually better than the Hector map. I think that doesn't take away, like, the turn 0 stuff is frustrating. I don't think that takes away from the other cool aspects of the map. I like the objective. I love the references. Like, I don't even play Fae, and I appreciate the references. And maybe they're not as good as I'm giving them credit for, but I feel like they are. I feel like if I was a Fae player, I would like the references even more. So yeah, I think Veronica goes in B tier as a map. As an emblem, obviously she's S tier, but, you know, as an emblem, we're not ranking the prizes. I feel like that just complicates things too much. But yeah, that's the emblem maps tier list. Maybe I'll do one for the emblems in the main game, although I feel like everyone and their mother has done one of those, and I'm not sure how much more I have to add to that. Because I've watched quite a few of them, and they've all been very good. Basically, even the opinions I disagree with, they're very well justified, they're very well written out, and I think that well has been run dry by people who are more articulate than Baby Exhausted Me. But yeah, these are my opinions of the DLC maps. Fuck this one. I will probably never play this one again. Because I don't know, other than maybe my 0% growths run, I don't know that it's worth it. Because, like, Chrom does some interesting stuff, but, like, not that interesting. I don't know. Like, comment, subscribe. Bye. Love y'all.